Daniel Sports Center, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the big matchup coming up here in the Big Ten in Week 9 of this 2022 college football season. And this could be over the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Penn State Nittany Lions. Huge matchup for both these teams coming up here in Week 9. You got Ohio State, who is still undefeated on the season. This team is 7-0 and ranked second in the country. And they're taking on Penn State, who's ranked 13th in the country. They're 6-1 on the season. Obviously, they took a disappointing loss to Michigan a couple of weeks ago, but Penn State is still very much a contender, and they're taking on Ohio State, who is very much considered to be a major national contender right now. So a crucial one for both these teams moving forward as we look forward to Week 9. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting with your team trends. Ohio State, they beat Iowa 54-10 last week. Huge win for Ohio State there. And Iowa, their offense is absolutely terrible to say the least, but their defense is not bad. So for Ohio State to dominate Iowa like they did was impressive. Got the win there 54-10, and once again, they're 7-0 on the season. And you can make a strong argument that Ohio State is the best team in the country right now, just based on how consistent this team is. I would argue that Ohio State is potentially the most consistent team in the nation. They haven't gotten many signature wins yet, but for the most part, this team has been, you could say, the most consistent. And at 7-0 going on the road at Penn State, this is probably the best team that Ohio State has played to this point in the season. You got Penn State, who just beat Minnesota 45-17, took care of the Golden Gophers there, and Minnesota dealing with some injuries. It's just been unfortunate for Minnesota. I feel like that's a team that could be a big contender, especially in the Big Ten West, but they've just dealt with injuries between Tanner Morgan and Mo Ibrahim over the course of this season. It's been tough for the Gophers, but Penn State got the win there 45-17. They were dominant, and once again, they're 6-1 on the season. Games will be on Saturday, October 29th in University Park, Pennsylvania. So Penn State is the home team for this matchup, which is significant. Penn State has got a strong home field advantage. Kickoff is noon Eastern. Spread's going Ohio State by 16.5. So the Buckeyes are favored by a decent margin for this matchup, over under 61.5. And your FPI is going nearly 80% towards the Buckeyes here. Series history, Ohio State leads at 22-14. They've won the past 5 against Penn State as well, something to keep in mind there. So Penn State, the last time they won was in 2016, and that game was a home game for Penn State there. So that's something to keep in mind moving forward. Stat comparison for this one: Ohio State is excellent in almost every single area, or in fact, they are excellent in every area. They're first in points per game this season, 5th in points allowed. They're 14th in pass yards a game, 21st in rush yards a game, and for yards allowed, they are 4th in passing, 5th in rushing. So this is all around just an outstanding team in Ohio State. It's not one side of the ball. It's not just offense. It's not just defense. This team is outstanding in both areas. And when you got C.J. Stroud, an outstanding receiving core like Ohio State usually does, plus you got Williams in the backfield. This is a very good Ohio State team on offense, and on defense, they've been allowing an average of 15 points a game, which is 5th in the country. And as for Penn State, they're 28th in points per game, 14th in points allowed, so not terrible stats there. They're 59th in pass yards a game, 39th in rush yards a game, and then for yards allowed, 61st in passing, 58th in rushing. So this is a team that is fairly good in the rushing game statistically this season, with Singleton, who's rushed for nearly 600 yards on the season and 7 touchdowns. So he's had a good start to the season, that's for sure. And obviously got quarterback Sean Clifford, who is as experienced as anybody. He's been around for a while, and so that's going to help, is having experience in the quarterback position. But obviously got C.J. Stroud on the other side, who is definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the country, if not the best. He's put up already 2,000 yards on the season, 28 touchdowns over 4 picks. Those are outstanding stats through 7 games. He's on track to, through 7 games to have 28 touchdowns. That puts him on track to potentially hit 50-plus, 55 touchdowns on the season when 2022 is said and done. So, he's having an outstanding season so far. And, Ohio State all around there's no doubt, they're the better team in this matchup. It's just a matter of whether or not Penn State can rise to the occasion and pull a big upset. Recent matchups: Ohio State, they beat Iowa 54-10. They beat Michigan State 49-20, so they dominated on the road there. They beat Rutgers 49-10, took care of Wisconsin 52-21, and beat Toledo 77-21. This offense is outstanding, to say the least, going up against some good Big Ten defenses, and they're having no problems. Penn State, they beat Minnesota 45-17, lost to Michigan 17-41. That was a very disappointing loss there, and some thought that Penn State was exposed in that game, losing that game by a decent margin, but coming back the next week, it was very important that they beat Minnesota, and they did so. And So I think Penn State, I'm still optimistic about the Nittany Lions. I think this team is probably a long shot to win the East Division at this point with Michigan and Ohio State. But, I mean, Penn State is still in contention. This team can still do it. I mean, they're going to need some help with Michigan losing now. But, I mean, you beat Ohio State, pull a major upset here. I mean, Penn State is very much in contention here. Key points for this one, Ohio State 7-0, potentially the best team in the nation. I would say, I mean, there's an argument. Currently, I've got Tennessee ranked as the top team in the country, just because I think their resume is strongest to this point. Plus, I mean, that team is just, I mean, it's been incredible seeing Tennessee and what they're doing so far this season. But Ohio State, I mentioned this, they're not, I mean, they're a close second. Ohio State is a team that I think is very much worthy of being ranked as the top team in the country right now. They are, once again, very skilled on both sides of the ball. They're elite on both sides of the ball, you could say. I mean, defensively, they're so strong. You got C.J. Stroud, who is, once again, just an outstanding quarterback, to say the least. And the receiving core is showing no signs of slowing down. So, and if you look at the road games, the rest of the schedule for Ohio State, this is probably the last tough road game. I mean, Penn State is the best team that Ohio State has played to this point. And the road ahead, you go on the road to Northwestern after this and on the road to Maryland. A couple weeks after that, obviously, you got the big showdown against Michigan. Probably for the Big Ten East title, you could assume there in the last week of the regular season. So, yeah, it's gonna be fun seeing Ohio State and how they do down the stretch here. But this is definitely an important one, and you gotta have this one down the stretch. But for Penn State, they bounced back last week after a tough Michigan loss, obviously, and once again, I can't exclaim how crucial that was for Penn State to get back on the right track after taking a disappointing loss. In this matchup, though, Penn State gonna have to force turnovers, keep this game close. I mean, against Michigan, Wolverines just got away, and you can't let that happen in this matchup. Ohio State is too good of a team to get down by a couple of touchdowns and expect to make your way back. So, I mean, you got to stay strong from the start defensively. You're going to have like a lights-out, outstanding game. I mean, Ohio State is averaging literally 50 points a game right now. So you got to hold them to, I mean, honestly, like 20 to 30, and just hope that your offense can score a few on this really good Ohio State defense. So you're going to have to force turnovers and put pressure on Ohio State, and this team is still in contention. They got the home field advantage as well, which is something significant to keep in mind for this one. But that said, let's get to the prediction here for Ohio State and Penn State coming up here in Week 9 of action. And I'm going to go with Ohio State here. 38-24 is my predicted final score. I've got Penn State covering the spread right now, which is 16.5 towards Ohio State. I've got Penn State actually keeping this game decently close, but I am pretty confident saying that Ohio State wins this one. I would honestly be stunned if Ohio State lost this game just because of how they've been playing in recent weeks. I mean, going on the road or not, this team has been dominant. And I mean, they've averaged 50 points a game this season, which is just an outstanding number. And there's a reason why that's the top in the country, is because they're just brutal to stop. So in the end, I've got Ohio State winning this one 38-24. I'll say percentage-wise, 60% towards Ohio State. Honestly, I'd probably bump that up to 65-70. I am pretty confident Ohio State wins this one over under 61.5. I'll take the over for this one, and Penn State cover the spread in the end. So I do think Penn State, they're going to put up a fight here. I mean, they're going to learn from that Michigan loss, and they're going to come out, and they're going to keep this game close for a while. But in the end, Ohio State, I think they win this game by a couple of touchdowns. And so the spread is tough to bet for this one, but I mean, there's no doubt Ohio State, I'm comfortable picking them in this matchup to win it. But that said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.